everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Inside Winston Cup Racing. I'm in Concord, North Carolina at the new facilities of Ricky Craven Motorsports, headquarters of the DuPont Chevrolets, which Ricky drives in the NASCAR Busch Series. We'll be talking to Ricky a little bit later on in the program, and we'll have much more for you in this half hour of Inside Winston Cup Racing.
We'll see how one Busch Series team prepares for race day as our IWCR flashback takes us to Rougemont, North Carolina, and a day in the life of the Nescafe team and former series champion Chuck Bound.
Also coming up on today's show, a look at the Busch Grand National North Series. It's producing championship drivers and drawing new fans from the Northeast.
And we'll take you into the NASCAR garage area for an up-close look at inspection. It's the first and the last stop for every Winston Cup winner. Today's show is brought to you by Super 8 Motels with over 1,000 locations nationwide. Life's great at Super 8. Texaco Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. And by Miller Genuine Draft. Get out of the old, get into the cold.
There are many similarities to the NASCAR Busch Series and the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Of course, one big difference is the fact that the Winston Cup cars run V8 engines, these cars run the V6s. Another big difference is the fact that the Busch cars run on the tracks of less than a half a mile on occasions. You might call them the bull rings. A while back, we followed one of the teams, the Hensley Racing Team, car number 63, when Chuck Bound was driving for them, to a race at Rougemont, North Carolina, and that is the subject of this week's IWCR Flashback.
This segment of IWCR is brought to you by Texaco Haviland Formula 3. Add more life to your car.
This has been a very hectic week. We've had 2 weeks off, but all that meant was we had 3 extra days a week in the shop. So, and we tested this car Thursday at Pulaski, and we're working on a lot of things to help help our consistency. And we come back in the shop Friday morning and completely stripped the car down to nothing. Just that we had to go back to our regular routine because we ran probably 500 laps up there Thursday, so it was just like a race. And so we've had to completely redo that. We had the motor out and back in, and Friday was a full day. Yeah, it's a lot to keep up with. It starts, when you load up here to go to the racetrack, and then when you get here, you got to go through inspection and, just make sure all your P's and Q's your I's are dotted and your T's crossed, I guess, but it's a lot more than people realize. It's different. It's a lot of teams, a lot of people that don't know the Busch Grand National Series or are not familiar with it that much think that we're kind of like Winston Cup, but there's a lot of variance. We get here and we got to get the job done and get it done quick, but I like it. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. It's been pretty hectic at the shop because we haven't been at the track, and we're a pretty competitive team and like to be racing. This is our job, and this is what we want to do. And so this morning it was a little different. I didn't sleep any last night because I wanted to be here and race.
It's nonstop preparing these race cars. We used to say the only time you don't work on them is when you race them. It's just the commitment it takes on their behalf is tremendous, and that's what separates the winners from the losers, is who gets in there and digs the hardest, works the hardest, comes up with a trick this or that gets them through for a few weeks to win a few races. It's just non-stop battle to try to get an edge.
Basically, we work on a race setup the whole time during practice, and usually it really doesn't affect where you qualify because a lot of the other teams do the same thing. They all realize that you've only got 2 hours of practice, so why waste your 2 hours on a qualifying setup when you don't get the practice after qualifying? Never hurts to check. In 916. We got the radios in. We're good to go, huh? Unofficially by our clock, we're the quickest right now, but now, I don't know.
Don't think your car's went fast yet, have they?
The quickest so far has been like a 40. I'll take it on there.
pays off with a starting position like this.
Well, I think so. I think it's quite important. On a little track like this, the pace up front sometimes is so fast, you can get lapped real quick. And if you're just a little bit off and back in the pack and can't get up through the traffic, so it's a benefit. Also, if there is a big pile up in the early laps, usually it's behind the first couple of rows anyway, so I find it a big plus to start at the front. We work hard to qualify good, but not as hard as we work at the race. That's what we really want to do, is win the race.
Chuck ran with the leaders through the early portion of the race before dropping a cylinder and battling an electrical problem. The Nescafe Pontiac finished 6th.
The car was, really consistent all night long, and that's what we're after. I don't know whether we could have beat Ward or not, because he was really strong, but I know we probably had a good shot at finishing 2nd. But all in all, I guess, it was a good run. We accomplished what we wanted to, and that was to be consistent, and we were. I just wish we could have finished a little better.
Well, Ricky, when you were running the Busch North Series before you came south, you ran a lot of tracks like the Rougemont, North Carolina track.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful, too. You learned the essence of racing at those places, and I miss it. I miss the people back there, and so many of those drivers, Ned, belong down here with me. If they get the breaks and they're determined enough, they'll be here with us.
Well, it looks like it is a good stepping stone for young drivers, and we'll take a look at some of those drivers when we come back. So you stay with us right here on TNN.
The competition is tremendous this year. I think it's as stiff as it is on the Busch South. We have a little bit more affordable tour. The basic cars are the same amount of money, but we have a tire rule that our tires are only $500 per set, and they'll go the whole race, so that saves you a lot of money. It just makes it more affordable for the guy that wants to get introduced to the Busch cars.
Sometimes there might be confusion on the Busch North Series and the NASCAR Busch Grand National Series, but they are two distinctive different divisions, and Ricky, both of them are very competitive.
Very competitive. This series this year for me has been very, very tough for my new team, but it's no more difficult than what it was in 1990-91 when I raced in the Busch Grand National North Series. This year for them, they've had several new winners, a lot of rookie winners, and while Inside Winston Cup was in New Hampshire, they talked to a lot of the drivers.
To stock car fans across the country, the Busch North Garage is a forest of unfamiliar faces. But to these men, the series is a championship challenge. And to race fans, the northern extension of NASCAR satisfies a lingering thirst for the thrills of stock car racing. The Busch North Series runs 17 standalone events and 4 companion races with the regulars from the South.
We got a good series here. It's growing to beat the band. There's a ton of competition. A lot of professional racers come out of here. A lot of these guys race up here and decide to make a career of it. Ricky Craven's gone down south, Joe Bessie, Chuck Bound. We've had a few people come out of here that's done pretty good. I think we've got a good group of racers.
We've got, I think, 70 cars in the pits. This series is growing by leaps and bounds. I just can't believe the interest. A lot of it has to do with this racetrack. New Hampshire International Speedway is just got everybody up here excited, and as soon as we got the Winston Cup race, the people are just coming out of the woodwork to get involved in this series, and I think it just spells good things for the future of not only our series, but racing in general in the Northeast.
While some of the cars and even some of the names are similar to those we see every week, the Busch North Series runs a shorter schedule on smaller tracks with a tighter control on cost. Tires are $500 a set and can and often must go the distance. Gear rules have been implemented to reduce the strain on motors and wallets. But there is no restriction on the close competition the drivers deliver during the summer in a series that has nowhere to go but up.
It's the highest you can get in the north. I think the next step's the Busch South, probably. I think this gives you an opportunity to work with the cars, and what you have to learn is when you move south is the radial tires. So I think I think you're better off to go Busch South before you jump right into Winston Cup, but
far as I'm concerned, I'm happy right where I am, and I just hope to finish my career out in the Skull Racing cars.
The Busch North Series is a blur of relatively unknown names on the cars and in them, facing off in a fertile field full of veteran racers and promising rookies. 1994 has produced 8 first-time winners and 11 different winners in 15 standalone events.
How about the name recognition factor? Everybody recognizes the name. Can they put it with the right face?
Not yet, I don't think. In fact, you guys have a TNN thing going with the Kenny Wallace car. You should have the 04 car, and they really messed some people up. But, you know, the more we're around, the more people recognize us. You know, we're starting to get some of our own following. So, you know, I can't say that about the other Kenny Wallace. He's been a great help when we went down south, and Mike Wallace and everybody. So we're happy to be here, and we're doing a good job.
The season is dominated by short track racing, but for many drivers, enthusiasm boils over when the series stops at the New Hampshire International Speedway.
Most of the time, though, was it Saturday night short tracks for you guys?
Yeah, basically. We run a lot of quarter miles. We run third of a mile. Half a mile is a big track for us. So when we come here and go to Watkins Glen, it's really great for us. We get a lot of speed, and some of the guys don't like it as well. We have a lot of real good short track races on this series. And but I myself, I like the speed better, so I'm real happy to come here. This is my favorite place to run.
The Busch North Series has built a strong enough foundation to earn some national television coverage, which has helped generate interest from a variety of intriguing sponsors, large and small. The financial backing and promoter support are two of the keys to the continuing success of the series.
The national sponsors are starting to look at this series as a marketing tool for them, so it's really helping us out a lot, you know, and Bob Baer and Gary Baer with this New Hampshire International. That's helped this series out tremendously up here. It really opened up a lot of eyes, and I want to thank them.
Oh, TGI5, you can't beat them. Try their food and their drinks. I mean, they do a heck of a business, and we can't say enough about them. They gave us, talk about credibility, they gave us the credibility when we needed it. You know, they came in as a rookie, and, you know, they took on a real rookie NASCAR racing, so they've been great to us, and I wish I could give them more back.
The Busch North Series has a talented cast of characters, many content to continue competing there, including 61-year-old Stub Fadden, a 2-time winner on the circuit this season, while for others, a little northern exposure could send them due south.
Our goal was to run for the rookie challenge and to maybe finish as high as 10th in points, and we accomplished both. We finished 10th in points and won the Penrose Rookie of the Year Challenge, so we accomplished both goals. And this year, I guess our goal is to win the championship in the Busch Grand National North.
And down the road?
And down the road, I guess eventually I would like to be in the Busch Grand National Division down in the South. That's my major goal, and if things go the way they have and that happens, then maybe someday Winston Cup. That's everybody's goal, I guess you could say.
So much of what the Busch Grand National North drivers do, Ned, is the short track stuff, half mile and smaller. When the Baer family decided to build the New Hampshire National Speedway, they did a big favor not only to Ricky Craven, but the other competitors. Gives them that little feel for the super speedway, the extra speed, and if they choose to come here, it helps them get ready.
And they'll be running at the New Hampshire International Speedway next weekend. We need to take a short break. Still to come, we'll have the mailbox. We'll also take a look at the inspection procedure in NASCAR Winston Cup racing, so you stay with us. The IWCR mailbox is brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft. Our question is from Martin Drakek from Staten Island, New York. How does the spotter get to tell his driver where and when an accident occurs when a driver is talking to his crew? Is there a device that overrides the other radios?
Hi, I'm Dale Cagle. I work for Red Performance Motorsports. I'm Ricky Rudd's spotter on race day. There's not really a device that overrides anyone's conversation during our, you know, the crew chief and the driver and the spotter are the main ones that talk on the radio. And there's not really a device that overrides one or the other. So what you say needs to be concise and to the point, and go on to your conversation and end your conversation as soon as you can, so that the next person, if they need to talk to them, they can. Many times the crew chief may be talking to the driver, and if something happens on a racetrack and as a spotter need to speak with them, and just as soon as that conversation ends, I you know, say what I have to say as soon as I can.
Keith, have you noticed the brake rotors? Negative. Info, I've been using them pretty good. You got a scrubber up here in 1 and 2, up high.
If you have a question, send us a letter at IWCR. We're at Box 240-417, Charlotte, North Carolina. The zip is 28224. Now, if we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Genuine Draft jacket.
After a short break, we'll take a look at the inspection procedure in NASCAR Winston Cup racing. And as we leave you for this break, here's a look at what's coming up right here on IWCR next week.
Next Sunday, the Winston Cup Series visits Martinsville, Virginia. We'll have the pre- and post-race reports from the Goodies 500.
And you'll go behind the scenes at Winston Cup Illustrated, a magazine that uses quotes and color to deliver fans a monthly review of NASCAR's racing action.
The official conversion van of Inside Winston Cup Racing is Gladiator from Glavel, America's #1 luxury van. Glavel, the way we put it together, sets us apart.
As long as NASCAR has been in existence, there has been a technical inspection program. When I drove race cars, they only had a couple of people that looked the cars over. Now they have a staff of people that looks the cars over from one end to the other, looking for safety features as well as legality. Last weekend at Richmond, Virginia, our crew followed the Kendall Oil Pontiac, which is driven by Bobby Hamilton, through the inspection program to show you what goes on.
The inspection process at a Winston Cup race is designed to deliver fairness in the area of competition and to uphold a standard of safety for the drivers. And to ensure that every race car that rolls onto the starting grid abides by all the rules implied by NASCAR, inspection is an ongoing process all weekend long at each and every race.
You have to take the car through at least 3 times. What happens is, Randy, the car goes through inspection once at the shop. Then once we get here, it goes through 3 in NASCAR mandatory inspections, which is the initial inspection when we unload the cars to make sure everything's okay to even be on the racetrack and meeting their regulations. Then we have to go back through inspection for a minor, what they call a height and weight check prior to qualifying, as well as you do the same inspection once again prior to the race. So those are 3 that are mandatory.
Beside the mandatory inspections performed by NASCAR, each team will most likely roll their cars through tech to check ride height and the weight distribution of their cars, because sometimes changing of springs and shocks can throw a car slightly out of line with the rule book. 10 or 15 years ago, the inspection process consisted of an overall template and the weighing of a car. Nowadays, it's much more complex.
Today, we're worried about right side percentages and have to weigh 45 on the right, which is 1,600 pounds, and a total weight of 3,500 pounds. So, we've gone through a total template configuration where we have a template that fits the doors, the nose, the fenders, the hoods, the overall, the roofs, the deck lids, the rear quarter panels. I mean, they check everything.
Wow, it's unbelievable. I mean, I guess tread widths, they want to make sure your rear end's right, camber, all that stuff, and then you go to the hood of the car, and under the hood, they do things there as well.
Yeah, we also get into a situation where they check the carburetors. They have a specific inspector who does nothing but check carburetors and manifolds. They P&G the motors to make sure the cubic inches are right. I mean, everything right there is done specifically to make sure that the competition is held fairly between the competitors. I mean, nobody's getting an unfair advantage. I mean, today, even with the tires, we have a regulation that you have to go through of picking your tires up. You're allowed 3 sets of tires, and these 3 sets are documented and put into a booklet, you might say, during the week that you're at this particular racetrack, and they make sure that the serial numbers match what's on the car, and they know when you use up your 3 sets of tires before, the qualifying is over. And, so it has gotten to be to where the inspection process and the rules and regulations all the competitors operate under are very stringent.
The safety aspect of tech inspection is equally as important to NASCAR. And not that it wasn't 15 years ago, but even that was nothing like it is today.
I ran a car one time that the whole roll cage, except for the main loop on the left side, was exhaust tubing, and we had it full of fuel. So, and we had a fuel tank at our feet, just that was disguised as an oil tank. Well, those things were bombs, In fact, this particular racetrack out here one time was the biggest fire we were ever in. It burned up 5 or 6 cars, and, it just did an explosion with everybody piled together. And so those things have gone away, so they've done a pretty good job of that.
In fact, this past weekend, the Stavola Brothers Ford was found to have an illegal roof cage. And in the interest of safety, the car was disqualified, and the team was fined $10,000.
But you have to always be very conscious of the safety of the driver. We put a lot of effort into making sure that leg restraints are as light as possible, that still work. The seat is mounted in the car as rigid as possible, but still as light as possible. The seat belts are properly installed through the roll bars and bolted with 3/8 bolts to where that the driver, himself is held in the car. The fire extinguishers
all the padding, everything like that that revolves around the driver, you don't need to lose sight of, because without your driver, you've lost your whole season.
You know, you get frustrated when they bust you on something every now and then, but when you sit back and look, everything they do, I mean, they've got you at their heart, and that's what makes you feel good. That's what makes Winston Cup racing as good as it is. I feel more comfortable in a Winston Cup car or Busch Grand National car than any car I've ever been in.
Why did they go through all of that? In the interest of safety and fairness of competition. Well, our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Our thanks to Ricky Craven and all the folks here at the DuPont shops for allowing us to come in here. You be sure to join us again here on TNN for more on the Inside Winston Cup.